When day comes, we ask ourselves,
Good morning, Claremont Center for Spiritual Living. How are you this morning? I'm Reverend Tracy, and I am so delighted to welcome you to our online service and to this community where we come to remember the magnificence of who we are. For the truth of us is that we are magnificent. We are always growing and evolving and becoming that which we are meant to be. And how good it is to have a community of those who would support us and celebrate with us and lift us up. It's truly a gift to be part of this wonderful, wonderful spiritual family. So thank you all for joining us. If you would like a little one-on-one support, I invite you to call on our practitioners. Their contact information is in the e-blast, it's on our website, or you can just call the church office and leave a confidential prayer request message. We look forward to being able to support you wherever you are in your life, and it is truly their delight to serve you in that way. So do take advantage, do reach out, do let us know if there's some way that we can know the truth for you in a greater way. This morning, we're going to begin, as we always do, by centering ourselves. And so I invite you to take a moment and just close your eyes and let the sound of the bowl take you to that place within. Allowing the tone to take you into that deep heart space, that place of love and light and peace. That space within, which is a sanctuary of the divine. And right here, right now, we stand in the presence of the One. This power and energy of life that is love and wisdom and clarity. That place of peace and infinite knowing. This life that is breathing us, each and every heart and mind here, part of this unified whole, this wholeness of infinite love. And it is from this place that I speak a word of blessing. Blessing for each and every person listening to my voice. A blessing of thriving and blossoming and healing. How good it is to pause and remember that that which we seek is within us. That good which we desire is seeking us. And that in our truth, all things are possible. And so this morning, I bless its unfolding, knowing that what needs to be heard is heard, and what needs to be said is said, and that all of us in this virtual community are lifted and uplifted and inspired to live our best lives, to be our best selves. For as we are the emanation of spirit, we can only be of good, of God, of all there is. And so it is. And so our reading this morning comes to us courtesy of Amanda Gorman. And you may recognize that name from our recent inauguration. She is the 22-year-old National Youth Poet Laureate, the first that we've ever had. And she stunned everyone with her amazing poem, The Hill We Climb. And that is what we're using for inspiration today. So please take a listen.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild reconcile and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Oh, it's a poem truly written for a new beginning. And that's what an inauguration is. The word itself is to set something of importance in motion. And it also means, I was surprised to learn this, to consecrate, to take something from the common to the sacred, to commit to a cherished purpose. And in this setting, her poem has had such power, and it moved me and really carried me along and inspired me. And to be inspired, that inspire is to breathe in spirit. It has the same root as the word spirit. So her words touched me in such a way that I took them as the basis of my talk today. And I started with her first words as my title, When Day Comes. I set out to find out why there was such resonance with what she said, and why it moved not only me, but so many hearts. I've talked to so many people who have been just moved by her words. And when I started to look at it, I realized that, of course, what she's speaking are those timeless truths, the principles that guide our lives, the spiritual truth that we all operate by. And what I loved about her first words, when day comes, is that it's when, not if. Because you know, the light always comes. The day always follows the night, and it comes to us. The light comes to us. We are not out there foraging around looking for something that we can't find. We simply can trust and know that light will always follow darkness and dispel it. Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind says, in all capital letters, always expect the good. He says, have enthusiasm, and above all, have a consciousness of love, a radiant feeling flowing through your consciousness at all times. Treat yourself, in other words, do your prayer work, until you have an inner sense of unity with all good. This poem that Amanda Gorman wrote and performed for us is a poem of hope and renewal and possibility from within and without. She's speaking to our current experience in a way that says, yes, we are here, and look at the possibilities before us. Here's the thing. I want us to be clear. Whatever we wanted to have happen, whatever we hoped the outcome would be, whatever we desired in terms of politics or the pandemic or our finances or our health for our kids and our families, whatever side of the aisle we see ourselves on, the truth is we've all had a shared experience of what's been a rough road. And no matter what you wanted to have happen, it happened in an atmosphere of division and tension and anxiety. It was an experience, a lot of things unknown, which creates confusion. Maybe you've been estranged from family members because of opposing views on voting or masking, or whatever families do any other time of their lives. But this year especially, a sense of loss, a process of grieving, trying to find our balance again. So even though we may have wanted and gotten what we wanted, or wanted and didn't get what we wanted, we've shared an experience that has changed us in untold ways. And even in this divisiveness, there are commonalities. And what I know to be true is that every human heart wants healing. And healing is what is being called for, a sense of wholeness, a place to belong, a place of peace. We all want to live in peace. Ernest Holmes reminds us that the human experience of pain is not to be denied. It's real. It's not the cause of things, but it is a real experience. And the way that we heal from that is through a greater understanding, a greater acknowledgement of what life is, how we fit into it, and where our power lies. The first step, though, is to always acknowledge right where we are. Not to think that where we are is a limitation, because a lot of times when things are hard, it's because we feel stuck, we feel blocked, we can't move forward, we can't express what we want to express. We acknowledge where we are not as limitation, but to know our starting point. Because in truth, we were always at the beginning of a new day. We are always on the verge of something new to begin, something to create that sense of enthusiasm within us for that which is about to be. The loss we carry, she says, the sea we must wade, this shared difficult experience of starting from here, this place of heaviness and divisiveness. And she says, yet somehow we do it. Somehow the morning comes again. And although we are far from polished, we are not broken. We are unfinished. And our next steps begin here, right where we are, so that we might move forward, so that we might rise upward, so that we might see a greater light. Now, how do we do that? We do that by knowing our values, by knowing our purpose. Miss Gorman reminds us that we are striving to forge a union with our purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of men. In other words, to have a place, a state of being where our diversity is welcomed and we live inclusively. We live with integrity, which is to integrate. In other words, all parts are part of the whole. And not by blade, but by bridges, not by conflict. That isn't how we heal. We don't heal through our divisiveness or lashing out. We heal through the bridges that we build, the ways in which we connect. And that's a choice. I think the main message of this poem is that we are at choice. We can choose to see the obstacles, or we can choose to see the possibilities, to act as if to harm none and harmony to all. Ernest Holmes tells us that the original spirit is harmony, and that we can look at wrong conditions and know that we can change it. Science of mind teaches us to see the good, to understand that whatever is happening in our lives is part of how life is for us, even though it may seem or feel negative. Ms. Gorman said it this way, that even as we grieved, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. Even as we tired, we tried. And that we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Together, victorious. In other words, we're choosing to work together to raise everyone, to allow all of us to rise up, to step into the past, in other words, where we come from, and choose to repair it, not to hide from it, not to deny it, but to know that we can change our lives, that we are not bound by precedent, as we teach in Science of Mind, but that in fact, where we come from is part of who we are, and that becomes part of how we create a world that works for everyone because we heal the divisions within ourselves. And isn't that what peace is? To have a sense of wholeness, to have a sense of inner peace. We've spoken often recently of being on the cusp of a new world consciousness, that this is the time and we are the people and things are changing. And I love the way the poet acknowledges that as we began this era of just redemption, how scary it was, how unprepared we felt. You know, when the pandemic started, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, a few weeks of staying at home, remote services, or being outside, and okay, we could probably do that. And how unprepared it felt to think that it would be 2 months, or 8 months, or a year and a half. Who was ready for that? No one. And yet, we're here. And yet, we've begun. And yet, at our core, the creative power that lies within us pulls us forward, moves us onward and upward into that ever upward spiral of life that Ernest Holmes describes. We can't help but evolve. We can't help but move forward despite what's happening in the world. Ernest Holmes says, we have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our life. Feel it, know it, and act as though it were true. Because it is true. It is true. This power lies within, this ability to move forward is here, right now. And when we talk about our purpose as a country or as an individual, it doesn't matter that we're battered or bruised or unfinished, because we are also beautiful and hopeful, and we can laugh. You know, we bring that with us. We talked last week about if you wait for happiness to come because of something that happens outside of you, you may be disappointed. But when you realize that the hope and the laughter lives in your own heart, I don't know about you, but every Bernie meme is making me crack up, you know? And it's just a sign to me of how much we need that laughter to heal. How long we have been struggling with each other, with the circumstances of our world, with the disease, with the loss. All of these things have been weighing on us in ways we didn't even realize until at least some of it shifted, until the vaccine was announced. And oh my goodness, we really are going to move through this. Until the voting was done and the main part of the, I would say, discussion, that's a rather polite word for what's been happening, at least among some of my family members. But that the worst of that has sort of passed. And whether or not we continue to debate and disagree, we're coming from a different place. Because there is a hope, there is an energy we know we have, there is a laughter that we can share, there is a reminder that life is more than its hardest moments. You know, last year showed us a lot of things. It emphasized our diversity and our differences. It also showed us how interdependent we are. You know, one person moving through COVID does not end the pandemic. We have to all be there for each other. We have to all work towards healing together in order for all of us to heal. It also showed us how unified we are, even amongst all the varieties of opinions and actions and choices people have made. We're unified in our desire to live a peaceful life, to love and be loved, to belong in the world in a way that gives us room to breathe. However diverse we are, we rise. As the poem said, wherever we come from, whether we come from the Midwest, the Northeast, the South, we all rise together under this common purpose of creating community in a way that includes us all, that gives space to us all, that gives a place of love for us to come from, and reminds us that we are greater than anything that can happen, that there is a power within us that cannot be denied. One of my favorite lines is that the one that says, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. Mercy, like the French merci, is about gratitude and grace. And that might, that is that inner power within us, the energy of life that animates all that we do and all that we are. And right is the truth, the spiritual truth that we know, the things that don't change. Know that love is real and peace exists and light shines. And we take that grace and gratitude together with our inner power in the name of truth. And we have love. And we have love. And then we are anchored in what is true, what is real, what grows us, what allows us to blossom. So we do allow the new dawn to bloom. As she says, as we free it. That's an interesting phrase. The new dawn blooms as we free it. In other words, that light that shines, that enlightenment, that understanding, that which allows us to see clearly, to see as Spirit sees, it comes through us. We are the vehicle for that light to shine. And so as we free up the light of Spirit that exists within us and exists in all people, when we practice seeing it and recognizing it everywhere we go, when we choose to use light rather than the sword of battle, then we move into a place of healing. Then we become that peaceful sanctuary where all things are included. We are the ones who spread the light, who share the light, who know the truth. If we're only brave enough to be it. Our prayer today is to once again hear the words of Amanda Gorman.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Amazing. It moves me every time I hear it. Please, let's do our affirmation now. I invite you to repeat after me. I stand in the presence of love as love. I choose to be the light. And so it is. Wonderful. I want to thank a few people this week. I want to call out Shelley, our board president, her husband Patrick, our own Ed Graff, and Bobby Noah, all for working together to work on our library roof to get everything cleared off and the vents resealed. So the little inside waterfall that we had going for a while no longer happens. Um, I know that Bobby checked it once this weekend already, and he didn't see any leaks. So I think we're good to go. So thank you all for making that happen. It took everybody to get that together. Thank you very much. I also want to thank all of you for continuing to contribute and support our community. You are the reason that we are able to do what we do, to teach what we teach, and to be a presence in the greater world. So thank you, and please continue doing so. It is the way in which we put our energy out there, and it tells you when you give that you are receiving. And the more we think that, then the more we receive, right? It's good. Thank you so much. This Wednesday night, we continue a series of conversations that Mary Cordova-Breen is leading called Things I Learned the Hard Way. You're invited to bring your stories to Wednesday night at Gateway at 7 o'clock on Zoom and just kind of share the kinds of things we learned when, we're not paying attention. Have you ever noticed that, spiritual 2x4 shows up? So we're having a good time exchanging stories. And, sometimes it's good just to be heard. So come join us. It'll be a lot of fun. You can also do a meditation a little earlier at 6:15 on Wednesday with NISA. That is a conference call where you can listen to uplifting words and spend a little time in the silence being centered. And it's just a lovely thing to do for yourself. So give yourself the gift of Wednesday night. And as always, if you have a little trouble with the technology, please let us know. Send an email to a practitioner or to me or call the office and leave a message, and we'll make sure to set you up with someone who can help you get online in a way that works for you, because we want you to stay involved. We want you to be able to be a part of the events that we are able to have during these very curious times. Now, I will say that as of right now, we will continue to meet online in February. The weather isn't really going to cooperate with us being outdoors, and we're not really cleared to be indoors. And of course, we want everyone to be safe. So we will continue to meet online. That may affect our annual meeting. We normally have our annual meeting the second or third Sunday of February. As of right now, I believe it will be the third Sunday in February, but please stay tuned. We'll get that information out to you. If it is going to be virtual, then we're definitely going to want to make sure you all can be there. So let us work with that. If we need to postpone a little bit, I think the board, we can come up with a way to make it work for us. And we will have it. It's just a matter of when and how, because as you know, we're making this all up as we go along, right? Right. All right, I think that's all we have for this week. Please know that you are loved. Please reach out and find something or someone that inspires you. Let this truly be a time of healing. And until next week, know that you are loved.